for everybody for joining this Tytan Professional webinar. My name is Samuel. I'm joined here by my colleague Kristen. We're talking about our Tytan Professional products and specifically some kind of safety aspects to consider when applying canned foam and other insulation products, but specifically the types of products that we manufacture. So here's the agenda. We'll talk about who Tytan is. We'll look at kind of some safety concerns. We'll look at, okay, how to stay safe before the application, during, and after. So Kristen, could you tell everybody a little bit more about Tytan and who we are?
Yeah, so we are a single source manufacturer of sealants and adhesives, largely polyurethane foam. Our lineup includes the sealants here on the left you see for fire block, window and door, an all-purpose fill-all, and then we have some thermospray, used for more wide spray insulation. And then we have some very heavy duty foam adhesives, used in applications like drywall and subfloor. And then our gasket foam, which is also used in some specialty sealing purposes.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Yeah, that's our product lineup. Okay, so why does safety matter? I mean, I realize that's kind of a silly question because obviously we want people to be safe when building things. But one thing to consider is that, and this is according to OSHA, 99% of all workplace accidents are preventable. 99%. I find that to be pretty interesting. And so how can we kind of go about using the Tytan foams and adhesives safely? How can we prevent any accidents? So here's some examples of kind of, I don't want to say common, but these things can happen. You can see on the right that picture where somebody had left a can of foam on their dashboard and it blew up. So you can see that mess. You can see some canned foam on that vehicle in the middle there as well. So this is some of the stuff that can happen. You can imagine you get that stuff on you. That's not good. So some of the main risks is getting the product, getting the chemicals in your eyes, on your skin. That's a risk. It can happen if you're not careful. Cans rupturing or exploding. I've seen messes where somebody drove a forklift into a pallet of canned foam, or they go to pick up a pallet of it and just run those forks right into that foam, and you just got a mess on your hands. Sometimes people will leave the products out sitting in the hot sun or in a hot car like that. Kristen and I both live in Texas, and it gets, I mean, the inside of your vehicle during the summer gets really hot. Inhaling the propellant whenever you're applying the product is a risk. And then also, I mean, if any of these things happen, they can cause delays on the job. Maybe you got to clean something up, or you got to get somebody some help. And so that can delay things. That's another risk. And so we always recommend people wear PPE when they use our products, especially gloves, because the product can get a little messy if you're not careful when you're taking the cans on and off the guns. That can you can get some foam on you or on your clothes or whatever. So I always recommend people wear gloves, safety glasses as well, some eye protection. I think that's always good. I always use eye protection when I'm spraying our products because you never know. Some of it could kind of bounce back on you depending on what you're doing. Also work clothes. I've got clothes that I typically, some old blue jeans or something that I typically wear when I'm applying our products. So I definitely recommend wearing that because it can get on you if you're, applying foam or an adhesive to a piece of wood and you have to pick it up and move it somewhere, you can get it on you. And then wearing a respirator if you're in an enclosed space. So the vast majority of our products are applied during the construction of the house when there's not really walls yet or you're not completely sealed in. And you got wind just blowing through the job site. But especially if you're in an enclosed space, we do recommend wearing a respirator. So here's some aspects to think about before you go to apply it. So one key thing is to store your foam the right way. And so what do I mean by that? Specifically, storing it upright. So you can see that can of foam on the right, our gasket foam that Kristen talked about. You want to store it upright. If you store it on its side, the chemicals inside the can start to damage the valve at the top of the can, which can then, air can start to leak in, and then the foam will cure in the can. So we always recommend storing it upright. So with the valve, and by that I mean that little white connection at the top that connects to the guns. When you take that cap off, you can see a little white piece. And so you want to have that face up, store it in a dry place. So I can't say that enough. I've seen people store a pallet of foam outdoors. Maybe your warehouse is full or your storage, whatever, is full. You store it outside and you think, oh, I'll be all right. It's just going to be for a day. But then it rains and the cans will rust in the rain if it gets wet. And then the cans can rupture. So I always recommend storing it in a dry place. Storing it, so you see we listed, and this is all on our TDS, by the way. So storing it between 41 and 86 degrees. If you have an unair conditioned warehouse, that's probably okay, depending on the temperature. If you keep the bay doors open during the day or something, and you got airflow, you're probably fine. But, you don't want to store it in temperatures over 122 degrees. That's 50 degrees Celsius. You don't want to store it in temperatures over that because the chemicals inside will just start to cook in the can, and it's not going to behave the right way. And so I do recommend you read more on our TDS. Like I mentioned, there's a storage section of that kind of towards the end. And so if you follow these recommendations, it extends the shelf life of the foam as well by following these recommendations. Okay, so what if it's winter time and it's cold, it gets real cold at night? I do recommend you store this stuff inside, which again, if you're keeping it in your work van and it's 15 degrees outside and you keep it in your work van overnight, the foam's going to be 15 degrees. And so when you go to apply it at 7:30 a.m. at the first job site, the product won't come out the right way. It won't cure the right way. The chemicals have to be within that can temperature range. And this is listed on the can as well, and the TDS. But we always recommend you kind of get it back into that temperature range before you apply it. Sometimes if it's cold out, people will put the box of foam on their dashboard and run the defrost. I've seen that work. I've seen it not work. But I just recommend storing it inside. That just you're way better off that way. And so then what if it's summertime? Okay, well, same thing. So don't store it in your work van. I remember when I first started working for Selena, there was a contractor having an issue near Atlanta. And this is in the summer. And I go out to help them out and investigate and see what they were dealing with. They had some questions. And so we realized that they were keeping it in the work van over the weekend in Georgia during the summer. And so, like I mentioned, and these work vans are just sitting in their their parking lot or whatever, and that product was just baking in there. And so also during the summer, don't leave the can in direct sunlight during your lunch break. I've seen this as well, where people just leave the box kind of on the slab or wherever they're at, and it's just in the sunlight, and it's 110 degrees outside, and it's just the cans are baking in the sunlight. So that can cause issues. And then also before application, like I mentioned on the previous slide, put on your PPE, and then you'll be ready to apply. So then during the application and after, so to dispense it safely, and so one risk, like I mentioned, is getting this stuff on you. So you screw the can on the gun, don't over tighten the can. Use that plastic collar to tighten it. And then you want to dial in that control knob on the back. That controls how fast or slow the can or the foam comes out. And so one thing I recommend is that you test spray it before you go to apply it, because you pull the trigger and that valve's all the way opened up, that foam is going to come out quick. And so if you dial it in a trash can, this kind of allows you to get a sense of how fast that foam's coming out. And you can turn that control knob over to the right and tighten it a little bit if you need to. And so here, that picture on the bottom right, that's what I mean by the plastic collar. So you want to hold on to that when you're tightening the can on the gun, and you just want to turn it until it's tight, just kind of finger strength tight. You don't want to crank it down on there, or else you can actually rupture that valve, and then when you go to take the can off, you'll have a mess on your hands because the foam will just be spraying out of there. And then when you go to so after you're done applying it, let's say you only used half the can, that's fine. Leave the gun on the can and store it like I have pictured there. You can store it like that for about a month and you'll be fine. Again, as long as you're storing it in those right conditions that I mentioned before. And so, like that last bullet point says, if you need to set the can and gun down during your lunch break, let's say, you want to close that valve. And so again, that's that little dial on the back of the gun. Close that all the way to the right and you can store it like that. And that'll prevent air from getting in the barrel, and you can safely go back to use it later. So that's all I had for this webinar. Some kind of safety things to think about. If you follow all those things, you'll be safer with our products on the job site, and that's what we want to see. So you can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We've got videos, articles that we publish on there. Other topics like this about foam and adhesives. Kind of like Kristen mentioned at the very beginning, we are a single source manufacturer of these products. And so they're used by installation crews and other trades all across the country. And so, like I mentioned, we want everybody to be safe using our stuff. And so if you use the PPE and store the product the right way, apply it safely, you'll be much better off and overall more efficient, if your job is safer. Okay, so thank you everybody for watching the webinar. If you're watching the recording, thank you. And thank you to my colleague, Kristen, for being a part of the webinar as well.
Thanks, Samuel.